Have you ever watched a master perform? Their movements so fluid, so natural, that it seems they were born with this gift. But I'm going to tell you something that might shock you. Something that contradicts everything you've been told about greatness. The truth is, the warrior is average. Yes, you heard me correctly, average. But here's the secret that separates them from everyone else. They train every single day. I remember the first time this truth hit me. I was 16 years old, training until my knuckles bled, pushing through pain that would make most quit. My master watched silently from the corner, and when I finally collapsed in exhaustion, he didn't offer praise for my intensity. Instead, he said something that would change my life forever. Young Bruce, you seek the extraordinary through extraordinary effort. But the path to mastery isn't found in moments of extreme exertion. It's found in showing up when no one is watching, in the quiet discipline of daily practice. I didn't understand it then. How could average lead to extraordinary? It seemed impossible, contradictory. But as the years passed, as I developed my own philosophy, as I created Jeet Kune Do, I came to realize that he wasn't telling me to be average. He was revealing the hidden truth about human potential that most people never discover. Look around you. Society celebrates the moment of triumph, the knockout punch, the championship victory, the breakthrough performance. They worship these peaks as though they appeared from nowhere, as though greatness was some magical quality bestowed upon the chosen few. But they miss what truly matters. They miss the thousands of mornings when the warrior rose before dawn, when their body begged for rest but their spirit demanded growth. They miss the endless repetitions, the small corrections, the daily decisions that seem insignificant in isolation but combined create something unstoppable. You see, the difference between the warrior and everyone else isn't talent. It isn't some genetic gift or predetermined destiny. It's the commitment to daily cultivation, the understanding that extraordinary results come from ordinary actions performed with extraordinary consistency. Let me tell you something about water. It appears soft, yielding, seemingly the weakest element in nature. Yet given enough time, water can cut through solid rock, carve grand canyons, reshape entire landscapes. Not through sudden force, but through persistent action, through showing up day after day, drop after drop, finding the path of least resistance, but never, ever stopping. I spent my childhood in Hong Kong, watching the fishermen return each morning, their faces weathered by salt and sun, their hands calloused from daily labor. There was nothing spectacular about any single day of their work. No one celebrated them. No one wrote stories about their routine. But in their consistency, in their dailiness, there was something profound, a different kind of mastery that our glory-obsessed culture has forgotten. When I brought martial arts to America, everyone wanted shortcuts. They asked for the secret technique, the hidden move, the shortcut to power. They'd train with fierce intensity for a week, then disappear for a month. They'd return expecting transformation, only to find themselves exactly where they'd left off, watching in frustration as the average students who never missed a day continued to progress beyond them. I remember one student in particular, a naturally gifted athlete with reflexes that made others jealous. He would appear, dazzle everyone with his potential, then vanish when training became monotonous. There was another student, unremarkable in every physical way. His first punch was awkward, his balance mediocre, his speed nothing to notice. But he never missed a day, never, not once in 3 years. Can you guess which one developed true power? Which one eventually expressed themselves authentically through their art? The warriors of ancient times understood something we've forgotten. They knew that mastery isn't about intensity, it's about immersion. It's not about the spectacular, it's about the sustainable. The samurai didn't become lethal by training until collapse once a month. They became living weapons through the ceremony of daily practice, through showing up when motivated and showing up when not, understanding that consistency itself is the most powerful force in the human experience. This is what I mean when I say, the warrior is average, but trains every day. The warrior isn't superhuman. They bleed like you. They doubt like you. They fear like you. But they've discovered that transcendence isn't found in escaping our humanity. It's found in embracing the sacred power of daily discipline. Let me tell you about my own daily practice, not to impress you, but to show you the ordinary actions that produce extraordinary results. No decision to make, no willpower to summon, just action before thought. I train my body first, not to exhaustion, but to engagement. 2 hours of movement, exploring the boundaries of my physical expression. Then I train my mind through reading and contemplation. Then I train my art through deliberate practice and innovation. Every day, whether filming a movie or recovering from injury, whether celebrated or criticized, whether feeling inspired or empty, the schedule remains because the schedule itself is the secret. Consider the bamboo. For 5 years, it grows underground, developing an intricate root system invisible to observers. Nothing to see, nothing to praise, nothing to post on social media. Then, in the 6th year, it shoots upward, growing up to 90 feet in mere weeks. The uninformed observer marvels at this overnight success, missing the years of daily invisible development that made the spectacular growth possible. Your life works the same way. Your daily practices, the ones no one sees, the ones that seem average and unremarkable, are building a root system beneath the surface. The world may not notice. They may dismiss your consistent efforts as ordinary, while praising the sporadic intensity of others. But underground, something extraordinary is happening. A foundation is forming that will one day support heights others can't imagine. I've studied warriors across cultures and throughout history. From the Shaolin monks to the Spartan soldiers, from the samurai to the ancient Olympic athletes. Their training methods differed, their philosophies varied, but one principle remained constant. They all understood the transcendent power of daily practice. They all recognized that mastery isn't achieved through occasional heroic efforts, but through humble daily devotion. Let me ask you a question that might change everything for you. What if today's actions, however small, are actually creating your future self? What if the difference between where you are and where you want to be isn't found in some magical transformation, but in the compounding effect of daily discipline? What if the gap between average and extraordinary isn't as wide as you've been led to believe? Consider 2 people. The first trains with spectacular intensity once a week, pushing to complete exhaustion, posting their achievements for others to admire. The second trains at moderate intensity 6 days a week, focusing not on social validation, but on showing up without fail. After 1 month, their results might look similar. After 3 months, small differences emerge. But after a year, after 5 years, after a decade, the gap becomes so vast it appears they were pursuing entirely different activities. Yet the only difference was consistency, the understanding that frequency matters more than intensity. I see so many of you making the same mistake I once made, believing that transformation requires radical action, that progress demands constant peak performance. But the human system doesn't work that way. Sustainable growth isn't built on intensity, it's built on consistency. Not the flashy workout that leaves you unable to move for days, but the moderate training you can perform daily without fail. Not the manic creative session that burns you out for weeks, but the consistent daily practice that accumulates over time. Consider how water boils. Apply small heat to a pot, and for a long time, nothing appears to happen. The temperature rises 1 degree at a time. 80 degrees, 90 degrees, 95 degrees, still just water. Then, at 100 degrees, a phase change occurs. What was liquid becomes gas. The nature of the substance transforms. Your growth works the same way. Each day of practice raises your temperature 1 degree. For weeks, months, sometimes years, nothing dramatic appears to happen. Same skills, same body, same results. But you're approaching your boiling point, and when you hit it, after accumulating enough consistent practice, a phase change occurs. What seemed impossible becomes natural. What was struggle becomes flow. The warrior understands this patience. They don't train for immediate transformation. They train with the quiet confidence that consistent daily action, maintained long enough, leads to dramatic phase changes that appear magical to those who don't understand the process. I remember my early days in America, trying to introduce people to authentic martial arts in a culture obsessed with quick results. Students would arrive full of ambition, demanding to know how long until they achieved mastery. How many months until I earn my black belt? They'd ask. How many years until I can fight like you? My answer always disappointed them. The question itself reveals you're still looking from the outside. You see, the warrior doesn't practice to reach some future destination. The practice itself becomes the destination. The daily training, showing up, exploring your edges, making incremental adjustments, that becomes the reward. And paradoxically, it's only when you fall in love with the practice rather than the outcome that the outcomes begin to arrive at an accelerated pace. Let me share something personal. People see my physique, my speed, my power, and they assume I was blessed with extraordinary genetics. They use this assumption to let themselves off the hook, to justify their own inconsistency. Bruce was different, they say. Bruce was special. But here's what they don't see. The thousands of days I showed up when nothing spectacular happened. The mornings I trained while others slept. The evenings I practiced while others socialized. The seemingly average, unglamorous daily deposits into what I call the reservoir of mastery. I wasn't born with extraordinary abilities. I developed them through extraordinary consistency, and you can do the same in any domain that matters to you. The warrior mentality isn't limited to martial arts. It applies to every field of human endeavor: your career, your relationships, your art, your spiritual practice. Whatever you want to master, the principle remains. Average daily actions performed with unwavering consistency lead to extraordinary results. Consider what happens when you water a plant. Miss a day and little changes. Miss a week and it shows signs of distress. Miss a month and it dies. Your potential is no different. It requires daily nourishment, not spectacular, overwhelming floods followed by droughts, but consistent, measured sustenance that builds vitality day by day. When I created Jeet Kune Do, people thought I was developing just another style, just another technique. But what I was really creating was a philosophy of consistent evolution, not rigid forms practiced occasionally with great intensity, but fluid adaptation practiced daily without fail, using no way as way, having no limitation as limitation. This isn't just martial philosophy. It's the recognition that true mastery comes from daily immersion, from constant engagement with your craft. The question isn't whether you have what it takes to become extraordinary. The real question is, do you have the humility to embrace the power of average actions performed daily? Can you set aside the cultural obsession with overnight success and spectacular transformation? Can you fall in love with the process itself, finding joy not just in the destination but in each step of the journey? I once had a student who trained with me for 5 years. For the first 3, he showed little remarkable progress. His movements were adequate but unexceptional. His understanding was sufficient but not profound. To casual observers, he appeared average in every way. Some questioned why he continued, why he didn't seek a pursuit where he displayed more natural talent. But he trained every day without fail, without complaint, without needing external validation. In his 4th year, something shifted, not suddenly, but noticeably. His movements became more fluid, his understanding more intuitive, his expression more authentic. By his 5th year, people would watch him move and assume he'd been gifted from birth. They'd ask me about his natural abilities, marveling at how some people are just born with it. I would smile, knowing they were witnessing not genetic fortune, but the accumulated power of over 800 days of practice. They were seeing the bamboo in its 6th year, unaware of the invisible foundation that made such growth possible. And herein lies the great secret. What appears to be talent is often just practice rendered invisible by time. What looks like natural gift is frequently just the accumulated effect of small advantages developed through daily discipline. Let me ask you something. How many truly great books have you read in your life? Books that changed you, that expanded your vision, that altered your trajectory? How many profound conversations have shaped your thinking? How many moments of genuine insight have redirected your path? For most people, these transformative experiences are rare, perhaps a handful in a lifetime. But imagine increasing their frequency through daily practice. Imagine reading deeply every day, engaging in meaningful conversation every day, reflecting on your growth every day. What might happen to your development if these rare, transformative experiences became regular features of your life? This is what the warrior understands. That mastery isn't achieved through occasional epiphanies, but through deliberately increasing the frequency of growth opportunities through daily practice. Imagine reading deeply every day, engaging in meaningful conversation every day, reflecting on your growth every day. What might happen to your development if these rare, transformative experiences became regular features of your life? This is what the warrior understands. That mastery isn't achieved through occasional epiphanies, but through deliberately increasing the frequency of growth opportunities through daily practice. In my own life, I've found that the most significant breakthroughs didn't come from isolated moments of intense training, but from insights that emerged after hundreds of days of consistent practice. The punch that once felt mechanical suddenly became effortless. The concept that once seemed theoretical suddenly became embodied knowledge. Not because of what I did on that particular day, but because of what I had been doing every day leading up to it. Water doesn't cut through rock with force. It cuts through persistence, drop by drop, day after day, finding the path of least resistance, but never stopping. This is how you must approach your own development. Not through occasional heroic efforts that leave you depleted, but through sustainable daily actions that become as natural as breathing. Society celebrates the spectacular, but true transformation happens in the mundane. It happens in showing up when you don't feel like it, It happens in practicing when no one is watching. It happens in making the choice, again and again, to prioritize growth over comfort, discipline over convenience. I often think about the countless martial artists who trained for decades in obscurity, perfecting their craft not for fame or recognition, but for the love of the practice itself. History records the names of only a few masters, but thousands lived and died in anonymity, finding fulfillment not in public acclaim, but in the private satisfaction of daily discipline. Their reward wasn't external validation, but internal transformation, the knowledge that through their practice they were becoming more fully themselves, more completely alive. This is what I mean by the warrior is average, but trains every day. The warrior isn't seeking to escape averageness through sporadic greatness. They're transcending the very concept of average by embracing the extraordinary power of daily practice. They understand that consistency itself is a rare and precious quality in a world addicted to quick fixes and overnight success stories. They recognize that showing up day after day, when inspired and when not, is itself a form of mastery that few ever develop. Let me tell you about my 1-inch punch, the technique that allows me to generate enormous power over a minimal distance. People marvel at it as though it was some secret knowledge, some hidden talent. But do you know what it really is? It's the physical manifestation of showing up every day. It's the accumulated result of thousands of days of practice, of subtle adjustments, of constant refinement. There's no secret technique. There's only the not-so-secret practice of daily training, of never being satisfied, of always seeking the edge of your current capabilities. And this principle extends far beyond martial arts. The writer who produces masterpieces has simply written every day for years. The musician who seems to channel magic through their instrument has simply practiced every day since childhood. The entrepreneur who appears to have the Midas touch has simply studied markets every day for decades. Dig beneath any apparent overnight success, and you'll find the same foundation, consistent daily action maintained long enough to reach a tipping point. I want you to try something right now. Make a commitment, not to some dramatic transformation, not to some spectacular achievement, but to a tiny daily practice in whatever area you wish to develop. So small that it seems trivial. So easy that you can't say no. 5 minutes of focused training, 3 paragraphs of writing, 10 pages of reading, 1 meaningful conversation. Whatever domain you wish to master, find the minimum effective dose and commit to it daily, not when motivated, not when convenient, every single day. Do this not for a week, not for a month, but for a year. Track each day of practice. Watch what happens not just to your skill, but to your identity. Because here's the secret most people miss. Consistency isn't just about what you do, it's about who you become in the process. Daily practice doesn't just build skill, it builds character. It doesn't just transform your abilities, it transforms your self-concept. After months of showing up without fail, you no longer see yourself as someone trying to become a warrior. You are a warrior, because warriors train every day, and so do you. I remember a particular period in my development when I became obsessed with speed. I wanted my punches to be faster, my reactions more immediate. I trained with incredible intensity, pushing my body to extremes, growing frustrated when my progress stalled. Then one evening, exhausted and discouraged, I watched an elderly master performing his daily routine. His movements weren't particularly fast or powerful, but they contained a quality I couldn't name, an effortlessness, a naturalness that made my own training seem forced by comparison. After he finished, I approached him and asked how long he had been practicing. 63 years, he replied. Every day, I asked. He looked at me curiously, as though the question itself was strange. Of course, every day, he said. How else would one approach mastery? That moment changed my relationship with training. I stopped trying to force dramatic transformation through intensity and embraced the subtler path of daily practice. And paradoxically, when I stopped obsessing over speed and simply showed up daily with full presence, my speed increased naturally, organically, as a byproduct of consistency rather than a goal directly pursued. This is the warrior's secret. They don't chase results. They fall in love with the practice that produces results as a natural consequence. They don't focus on the destination. They immerse themselves in the journey, understanding that the quality of their daily experience matters more than some future achievement. But let me be clear about something. When I say the warrior is average, but trains every day, I'm not suggesting you should embrace mediocrity or lower your standards. Quite the opposite. I'm telling you that extraordinary results come from embracing the power of ordinary actions performed with extraordinary consistency. The standards remain high, higher than most people can imagine. The difference is in how those standards are pursued, not through occasional Herculean efforts, but through humble daily devotion. Consider how a river creates a canyon. Not through sudden violence, but through consistent flow. Each day, the water removes a tiny amount of earth, so little that it's imperceptible. But maintained over time, this consistent action creates one of nature's most spectacular formations. Your growth follows the same principle. Each practice session may remove only a grain of resistance, may add only a fraction of skill. But maintained over years, this consistent action carves something magnificent, a life of mastery, a character of discipline, a spirit of unshakable resilience. Many people approach personal development like crash dieting, periods of extreme restriction, followed by complete abandonment of the practice. They train intensely for 2 weeks, then disappear for 2 months. They write daily for a month, then put down their pen for a season. They meditate fervently for 10 days, then abandon mindfulness entirely when life gets busy. But transformation doesn't work this way. The body doesn't respond to sporadic effort. The mind doesn't evolve through occasional attention. The spirit doesn't grow through intermittent devotion. They all require the same thing: consistent, daily practice. This insight transformed my approach to martial arts. Instead of measuring progress by the intensity of individual training sessions, I began measuring it by consistency, by the unbroken chain of days I showed up, regardless of how I felt or what external circumstances presented. Some days my training was brief due to filmed schedules. Some days it was modified due to injuries. But the practice itself became non-negotiable, as essential and automatic as brushing my teeth, as natural as breathing. The duration and intensity might flex, but the consistency remained absolute. This is what separates the warrior from the dabbler, the master from the enthusiast. Not talent, not genetics, not luck or circumstances or opportunities. Just the humble decision to show up every day when others show up occasionally. Just the quiet commitment to consistency when others celebrate intensity. Just the patience to trust the process when others demand immediate results. You might be thinking, but Bruce, some people do seem naturally gifted. Some people do progress faster than others despite similar training. And you're right, natural aptitudes exist. Different bodies and minds respond differently to similar stimuli. But here's what I've observed across decades of teaching thousands of students. The advantages conferred by natural talent are vastly overrated compared to the advantages conferred by superior consistency. I've watched naturally gifted students get surpassed again and again by average students who simply didn't miss days. I've seen average bodies perform extraordinarily through the accumulated advantage of showing up when the naturally athletic were nowhere to be found. This isn't wishful thinking. It's not motivational hype. It's the observable reality of human development across every domain I've studied and experienced. The math is straightforward but profound. If you're of average talent but trained 3 times more frequently than someone with superior natural ability, you will surpass them. If you maintain this consistency advantage for years, you will surpass them by such a margin that observers will begin attributing natural talent to you, never seeing the thousands of days of practice that created the very qualities they assume you were born with. This isn't just true in martial arts. Look at any field of human achievement. Study the biographies of masters. You'll find the same pattern repeating. What appears to be genius is often just the accumulated advantage of daily practice. What looks like magic is actually mundane actions performed with religious consistency. The world celebrates the extraordinary, but mastery is built through embracing the ordinary, recognizing that the gap between average and exceptional isn't as wide as we've been led to believe. It's often just a matter of frequency, of showing up daily when others show up occasionally, of maintaining consistency when others celebrate intensity. I want to share a training method I developed that embodies this philosophy. I call it minimal viable practice. Instead of focusing on maximum effort, which often leads to burnout and inconsistency, I identify the smallest meaningful action that moves me forward in a particular domain. For physical conditioning, it might be just 15 minutes of fundamental movement. For reading, it might be just 10 pages. For writing, just 1 paragraph. For meditation, just 5 minutes of focused attention. Whatever the domain, I determine the minimum effective dose, the smallest action that still produces growth. Then I commit to performing this minimal practice every single day without exception. But here's the crucial part. Once I begin the minimal practice, I give myself permission to continue if I feel inspired. Often, the hardest part is just beginning. Once the first 5 minutes are underway, momentum often carries me into a longer, deeper practice. But by removing the psychological barrier of an intimidating duration or intensity, I ensure that consistency remains sustainable. Some days I do the minimum, some days I do much more. But I never miss a day, because the minimum required is always small enough that I can perform it regardless of circumstances. This approach transformed my relationship with practice. Instead of seeing training as something that required perfect conditions, enough time, enough energy, enough motivation, I recognized that growth doesn't require optimal circumstances. It requires consistent engagement, even when conditions are far from ideal. The warrior trains daily not because every day offers perfect training conditions, but because they understand that consistency itself is the most powerful condition for growth. Consider how this might apply to your own life. What small daily practice could you commit to that would compound over time in an area that matters to you? What minimal viable practice could you perform every day without fail, regardless of circumstances? What tiny, consistent action might create a canyon of transformation if maintained for years? The answer to these questions contains more power than any technique, any system, any philosophy I could share with you. Because ultimately, mastery isn't found in knowledge, but in action. Not in what you know, but in what you do consistently. I want to address something important: the difference between motion and practice. Many people confuse being busy with being effective. They confuse activity with practice. But true practice isn't just movement. It's movement with awareness, with intention, with presence. The warrior doesn't just train every day, they practice every day. They bring their full attention to each movement, each repetition, each moment of engagement. They're not just going through motions, they're exploring the boundaries of their current capabilities, making subtle adjustments, discovering new possibilities within familiar territory. This quality of attention transforms routine into practice, transforms exercise into development, transforms repetition into growth. I've watched students perform the same physical movements side by side, one merely executing techniques, the other truly practicing them. Same motions, dramatically different results. The difference? The quality of awareness they brought to each repetition. One was physically present but mentally elsewhere. The other was fully engaged, treating each movement as an opportunity for discovery rather than a requirement to complete. This distinction extends beyond martial arts. The writer who shows up daily but merely produces words without presence is just in motion. The writer who brings full awareness to each sentence, who explores language with curiosity and intention, is actually practicing their craft. The warrior understands this difference. They don't just show up daily, they show up with quality attention. They approach each practice session not as something to get through, but as an opportunity to go deeper, to explore nuances, to discover new territory within familiar landscapes. And this is where the extraordinary becomes possible, not just through consistency, but through consistent presence, through daily practice performed with unwavering attention. I want to tell you about the most important training session of my development. It wasn't some intense workshop with a famous master. It wasn't some breakthrough moment where I suddenly developed a new technique. It was an ordinary Tuesday afternoon, nothing special about the day, nothing remarkable about the circumstances. I was practicing a basic punch, a movement I'd performed literally hundreds of thousands of times before. But on this particular day, for reasons I still don't fully understand, I brought an unusual quality of attention to this familiar movement. I noticed sensations I'd never perceived, discovered inefficiencies I'd never recognized, understood the mechanics in ways that had eluded me despite years of practice. Not because the punch was different, but because my attention was different. In that unremarkable moment, performing that unremarkable movement, I had a profound realization. There is no such thing as advanced technique. There are only basics that you understand with increasing depth. The warrior doesn't transcend the fundamentals. They penetrate them more deeply through daily practice performed with ever greater presence. This insight revolutionized my approach to training. Instead of constantly seeking new techniques, new methods, new systems, I began exploring familiar territory with new eyes, bringing fresh attention to movements I'd performed thousands of times before. And in this exploration of the known rather than the pursuit of the unknown, I discovered more growth, more progress, more development than any new technique could possibly provide. This is what daily practice offers, not just repetition, but the opportunity for deeper penetration, for more complete understanding, for more authentic expression through familiar forms. But this depth only becomes available through the commitment to showing up every day, to engaging with your craft with consistent attention rather than sporadic intensity. The path of the warrior isn't about escaping the ordinary. It's about discovering the extraordinary within the ordinary through the transformative power of daily practice. It's about recognizing that mastery isn't found in some distant achievement, but in the quality of your engagement with each day's practice. It's about understanding that the gap between average and exceptional isn't as wide as we've been taught, that exceptional often just means average actions performed with exceptional consistency. Before I leave you, I want to offer a challenge, one that might seem simple but contains within it the power to transform any area of your life. For the next 30 days, identify one small practice that matters to you, something so minimal that it seems almost trivial. 5 minutes of focused training, 3 paragraphs of writing, 10 pages of reading, 5 minutes of meditation. Whatever domain you wish to develop, find the minimum effective dose and commit to it daily. Not when motivated, not when convenient. Every single day. Track each day of practice. Watch what happens not just to your skill, but to your identity. Because here's the secret. Consistency isn't just about what you do. It's about who you become in the process. After 30 days of unbroken practice, you won't just be developing a skill, you'll be developing the warrior's most valuable quality, the ability to show up regardless of circumstances, to maintain consistency when others celebrate intensity, to trust the process when others demand immediate results. This quality, more than any technique or method or system, is what separates the warrior from the dabbler, the master from the enthusiast. Not talent, not genetics, not luck or circumstances or opportunities, just the humble decision to show up every day when others show up occasionally. Just the quiet commitment to consistency when others celebrate intensity. Just the patience to trust the process when others demand immediate results. Remember, the warrior is average, but trains every day. The extraordinary isn't found in escaping averageness through sporadic greatness. It's found in transcending the very concept of average through the transformative power of daily practice. Water doesn't cut through rock with force. It cuts through persistence, drop by drop, day after day, finding the path of least resistance but never stopping. This is how you must approach your own development, not through occasional heroic efforts that leave you depleted, but through sustainable daily actions. Society celebrates the spectacular, but true transformation happens in the mundane. It happens in showing up when you don't feel like it. It happens in practicing when no one is watching. It happens in making the choice again and again to prioritize growth over comfort, discipline over convenience. The warriors of ancient times understood something we've forgotten. They knew that mastery isn't about intensity, it's about immersion. It's not about the spectacular, it's about the sustainable. The samurai didn't become lethal by training until collapse once a month. They became living weapons through the ceremony of daily practice, through showing up when motivated and showing up when not, understanding that consistency itself is the most powerful force in the human experience. So I challenge you, become average, embrace the ordinary, find beauty in the mundane, and train every day. In this humble consistency, in this quiet discipline, in this daily devotion to your craft, you'll discover what the true warriors have always known. The extraordinary isn't found in what you do occasionally, it's found in what you do consistently. Be waterproof, flow daily, persist, transform, not through force, but through consistent presence, not through sporadic intensity, but through unwavering consistency. The warrior is average, but trains every day. And in time, this seemingly ordinary commitment produces the most extraordinary results of all, not just a transformed body or mind, but a transformed life.